Hello and a very warm welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now in today's video I want to talk about 10 dangers to look out for when buying property in the UK, particularly England and Wales. Now it's actually amazing how so few buyers take these points into account when it comes to purchasing property in the UK. The first danger I want to talk about is leasehold property. In my opinion, you should not buy leasehold property in the UK. If you buy a leasehold property, you may think you own it, but it is the freeholder that owns it, and in effect, you are at their mercy. You're still in effect a tenant with the right to occupy the property for a certain number of years, but the building and the land belongs to the freeholder. Now, the vast majority of houses in the UK are freehold, but it's not the case with flats. If you buy a flat, you should try and aim for one that has a share of the freehold, which you would in effect own a part of the land and the building, and hence have a bigger say in the running of the building. And it's much more likely as well that you're going to be paying a lower service charge. Now, if you are a leaseholder, it is much more likely that you will be paying more for repair costs, as the freeholder has few incentives to keep the costs down. After all, they are not paying for the repairs. You as the leaseholder, or in effect the tenant, are paying. Now, there have been many scandals involving leasehold properties where people have had to fork out thousands of pounds, and one such example is cladding, which those of you who are watching from the UK will be fully aware of. Now, the length of the lease is also very important. If a lease is 80 years or less, it can be hard to get a mortgage for it. A lease of less than 70 years will start to affect significantly the value of the property. Now, although you have the right to extend the lease after 2 years of living in a property, it can be very expensive to extend the lease if it's short. Now, personally, I have to admit, I think that in a developed country like the UK, it's scandalous that you still have leasehold properties, and I'm hoping this will come to an end very, very soon. Number 2, estate agents. Now, estate agents in the UK act exclusively on behalf of the seller, or in the majority of the cases they do. Many of these estate agents are unscrupulous. They will try any trick in the book to sell you a property, so you need to really do your homework. Really, in effect, trust an estate agent in the UK as far as you can throw them. Number 3, service charge fees. Check service charge fees, as they can vary enormously. Now, as an example, in the City of London, in an area of Putney, recently I saw 2 very similar apartments in the same area, similar size, but the service charge varied enormously. One had a service charge of £2,520 and the other one, from memory, had a service charge of nearly £7,000, and these are yearly fees. So you must check the service charge. And going back to point 1, if the apartment flat is share of freehold, the service charge is much more likely to be less than a leasehold apartment. Number 4, ground rent. Now, the ground rent is what you pay to the freeholder, the one who owns the land and the building. In many cases, this is a nominal amount, say around £100 to £150 a year. But this is not always the case. You need to check the lease agreement to see if the actual fee can be raised in the future, and by how much and how often. There have been cases where this has been very, very high. So again, please do check that lease before buying. Number 5, check if the property is ex-council. Now, although these properties are a lot cheaper than privately sold properties, they are typically more difficult to sell in the future, in particular in a depressed market, as is the case in the UK at the moment. Also, if repairs are done to the building, you will more than likely pay higher repair costs, as many of the others living in the building will be tenants renting from the council. So, by way of example, there's 2 of you in the block. I know it's a simple example. There's a repair fee for the whole block. You who, for example, have bought the property from the council will pay pretty much the whole fee for this. So be careful. I would not buy an ex-council. Number 6, check council tax fees. Now, council tax is a tax you pay to the local authorities for providing services such as rubbish collection. Now, this can vary a lot from council to council. It's not unusual for a council to charge more than double another council for a similar property within one city. Now, you'll find it's very strange in the UK because you'll often find in poorer areas council tax fees can be higher than in more affluent areas. So please do check that, as in many cases, from even within a city, it can be more than double. Sometimes it can be 2.5 times to 3 times more in one area than another. So this is very, very important indeed. Now, number 7, always get a survey done if you buy a house in the UK, or indeed you should get one done for a flat as well. The UK actually has the oldest housing stock in the whole of Europe, and many houses suffer from dampness. Now, even if a survey costs £3,000 or £4,000, it's worth doing, because sometimes if you don't do this and you find, let's say, leaks in roofs, etc., it can be very expensive to repair. It can be £20,000 plus to repair a roof in a house in the UK. So please get that survey done. Number 8, be mindful of the length of time to complete a purchase. It can take a long time from actually making a bid on a property to completing. On average, it takes about 2 to 3 months, but it can take a lot longer, sometimes up to a year. Please bear in mind about a quarter of all purchases fall through, often as a result of a chain where you're relying on another buyer to complete. Now, it can only take one buyer to pull out and the whole chain collapses. Now, you can help speed up the process by pushing your solicitor to make checks as soon as possible. Unfortunately, I have to say, many solicitors that represent buyers and sellers are not very proactive, and they can often sit on documents for weeks at a time. So please keep hammering away at your solicitor. Also, do not be shy to ask your solicitor for details about things we have already mentioned, like ground rent charges, service charge fees, and any other relevant things that will affect the property. Please do that, because solicitors, again, are not that proactive. And it's amazing how many of them fail to check this information. Number 9, and this point is concerned with England and Wales and is known as Gazumping. Now, this happens when another buyer offers more money during the process between making a bid and completing on a property. So the buyer offers more money, so the second buyer, than you, and the seller reneges on the deal. And this often happens during a rising property market. Now, this can be extremely frustrating, and it also is costly, especially if you've already paid thousands of pounds to have a survey done on a house or a flat, and obviously paid some fees to the solicitor. Now, I've got to be honest, I think this is absolutely disgusting, and most people from outside England and Wales would think the same as well. And I've heard comments like, but this only happens in a banana republic. But I'm afraid it does happen in England and Wales. And there's not much you can really do about it. Or what you can try and do, again, try and speed up the process of getting the deal done, or insisting that once you've made a bid, the seller takes the property off the market, so it's no longer seen on the internet. But there's no guarantees, and I will say, I really hate this. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Number 10, school catchment area. You will often find that two similar properties very close to each other geographically often vary enormously in price. Now, this can be because the more expensive property is in a street where a pupil can go to a good state school, Whereas let's say on a street nearby, this may not be the case, and hence the property is much cheaper. So it's definitely worth looking into this as well when searching for a property. This is actually very similar to the United States. So people, let's say, watching from the United States will know exactly what I'm talking about. But hopefully people from the UK, and especially those, let's say, from other countries as well, continental Europe, whether you're watching this from Asia, please do look into this if you're buying property in the UK, because school catchment area is very, very important. Because let's say if you're buying a property in an area where there's not a good state school, you may be forced for a better education to send your child to a private school, and private school fees are really, really expensive. They can be £20,000 a year per pupil. So please do check this as well. So I hope this video has been of help. Now, if there's any more points, please do put them in the comments below. Anyway, that's it for today. Please do click the like button. Please do subscribe, and I shall see you very soon on the next video.